whole lot of loving is what we'll be bringing. We'll make you happy.
Hello and welcome to Schools with Heart and my final, for the time being, chapter on creating a class that feels like home with the magic of community. I'm Olivia LaField. In today's video, I'm going to expand even more on episode 38, where you heard the story of the group that wanted, as Katie put it, out of this group. As you may remember, after many attempts at solving their conflicts, they reached what seemed like an impossible stalemate and were on the very brink of quitting when I suddenly had a vision of Katie and her future husband on the brink of divorce. And upon hearing my vision, they recommitted to staying together and reaching community. I'm continuing with the story today because it is imperative that you understand the powerful, life-changing lessons that those 5 12-year-olds learned through the process of reaching community. I strongly believe it will convince you even more of the need to introduce community to your SEL curriculum. In the truest sense, the entire process was ripe with a plethora of potentially life-changing lessons that I'm excited to share with you right now. To begin with, and in no certain order, they learned the critical importance of commitment to a cause higher than themselves, such as marriage, for example, and in this case, community. They learned about consensus and about holding each other accountable. In all likelihood, entirely new concepts. They practiced setting goals and successfully reaching them. They learned ways of solving their conflicts peacefully rather than divorcing themselves from the problem. They learned not to walk away. Not to walk away. They practiced perseverance and maintained grit through a trial without which their decision to reach community would have inexorably met with failure. They were personally empowered by the entire process. Its success gave them hope and a clear path for meeting and solving future personal and relational problems. They practiced tolerance, compassion, empathy, and group cooperation with right heart attitudes. They even practiced humility and unselfishness in the sense that they set aside their entrenched attitudes and chose instead to soften their hearts toward one another. In other words, they focused on others and not only on themselves. They were smart about their feelings and the feelings of others. And you know by now, if you've been with me from the start, that that is our definition of emotional intelligence. They abandoned their fixed mindsets and adopted growth mindsets. When I asked them from time to time how they were doing, they answered that they hadn't reached community yet. I invite you at this point to rewind the video right now and listen again to the powerful lessons that they gleaned from the experience. Can you think of any means by which they could have learned so much in the parameters of a typical classroom, apart from the actual trial that they experienced firsthand in their group quest of reaching community that year? In truth, their struggle was a classic example of a real-life scenario reenacted in the homes of thousands and thousands of couples every day throughout the world. It's the "I quit, I can't do this anymore, I don't love you anymore, I found something better and I won out" scenario. Its aftermath leaves shattered lives, broken dreams, and the innocent victims who fill more and more of the desks in our classrooms with each passing year. My hope and prayer for each of those precious children is that in the days and the years to come, they will not succumb to the scenario, but will courageously live the lessons that they learned that day in the Commons when they were only 12 years old. To conclude my in-depth focus on community, I return you to the compelling story of Scott Peck's fortuitous discovery of community at his Quaker school, and those 7 words that penetrated the very epicenter of my being and unveiled the blueprints of the classroom that God had designed long before. I felt like I had come home. He had been calling me to step to a different drum, to take the road less traveled, and to use Peck as the instrument to light my path with 7 divinely inspired words. I felt like I had come home. What was it about those words that so fiercely gripped my pounding heart in those life-defining moments so many years ago? What instinctive force within me gobbled them up and swallowed them whole, savoring every morsel since? They were the words God used to reveal my ultimate purpose for being a teacher. After 15 years of getting most of it wrong, in 7 words, God revealed what I was to do in the classroom for the rest of my career. He knocked on the door of my heart that day, and with those 7 inspired words, he so much as said, "Olivia, here's the plan, plain and simple. I want you to make your classroom a safe sanctuary where your students feel at home." God awakened me that day to the needs of those homeless ones in my class. And one step at a time, he gave me the tools I needed for the construction of that class. He was the architect and the engineer. I was the carpenter who meticulously drove every nail. It was all about teamwork, all about letting the boss be boss. It was all about perseverance and passion and a plan. Some call it a magnificent obsession. I call it community. God calls it home. It doesn't really matter what we call it, as long as it's good for the kids. A few years after I began my journey into creating a class that feels like home, it occurred to me to write Dr. Peck a letter of gratitude. I actually had little hope that my letter would reach him, and for that reason, I was astounded when he actually replied. Peck's passing in 2006 reminds me of one of my favorite quotes by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Lives of great men all remind us we can live our lives sublime, and departing leave behind us footprints in the sands of time. In the truest sense, Dr. Peck left his footprints on my life, but more importantly, on the lives of thousands of my students who have felt like they have come home in my classroom. My deepest desire and most fervent prayer is that my never-ending journey of creating a class that feels like home will inspire many thousands of you, my faithful listeners, to launch your own journey, and that you will allow me, as you enter uncharted territory, to help you along the way. In that way, I will take up the cause of M. Scott Peck, whose life was fiercely devoted to creating not just community-centered classrooms, but an entire world of people committed to creating a planet that feels like home, despite our multitude of differences. Our world today, more than ever before, desperately needs community. Let its spread begin with us, the teachers of the young. One child at a time, let us endeavor to devote our lives to creating a planet that feels like home. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.